So this is Dynamic Nat, Network Address Translation. There's three types. Today we're going to focus on dynamic. Okay, so let's go and get straight to it. So Dynamic Nat. So with Dynamic Nat, you basically have a pool of addresses. Okay, remember it costs money to get public IP addresses. Nonetheless, they're running out of public IP addresses. That's IP version 4. Okay, so a company can save a lot of money by going ahead and using private IP addresses and using NAT, network address translation, to go ahead and reuse or have multiple usage of that public IP address. Okay, this is typically used for nhost, as you guys saw, where static NAT was actually used for servers. This is typically used for nhost, and they're the PCs and hosts, one and the same. In this situation, we want to go ahead and have access to the internet. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the actual configuration. So here we are. So for the actual configuration, it looks like it's you can tell that it's a little bit more complicated. It's a little bit more complicated than the static NAT, but nonetheless, you still have to pick an interface, whether it's NAT inside or outside. Okay, in this situation, IP NAT pool, you have to go ahead and create a pool and you have to name it. In this situation where you see Dynamic Nat, you can name that anything you want. You can name it Fairy Dust. You can name it Superstar. You can name it Office One. Obviously, you would want to have a name that you can go ahead and something that would be easy to remember, something that when you look at your show run on your router, where you would actually be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So you want to make sure that you name it appropriately, but technically you can pick any name you want. And on this particular command, you guys can see start public IP address. Public IP address is the that's the address that bought. Either you bought, your company bought, or what have you. That's the public IP range that you guys have access to. Okay. Um, so it's the beginning of the pool and then the end of the pool, and with the net mask. And believe it or not, you have to actually use net mask. When we get into our configuration on our next video, I'll show you guys what I mean. But as far as I know, when I did the configuration, you genuinely do have to put net mask and then the mask number. So keep that in mind. Okay, and as you can see here, we have to go ahead and create an access list. And the access list is actually for the private IP address. Okay, so for the private IP addresses, we already talked about those. We'll show those again today. But you have to create an access list for those private IP address, and you have to go ahead. The last command here is ipnat inside source list one pool, and then whatever you named it. So whatever name you decided to go ahead and name your pool, you're saying, hey, we're gonna use the ipnat inside source list, whatever list it is, and you're going to go ahead and you're basically combining these three. You need to have these three commands in order for the dynamic NAT to go ahead and actually work. So let's actually go ahead and get into our Cisco packet tracer so we can go ahead and get a better overview. So let's go ahead and jump into there. So we are back with our Cisco Packet Tracer lab, guys. Okay, and on here, okay, this is already configured. I'm going to show you guys how to get to this configuration on a short video, but for right now, let's go ahead and do the overview. Okay, so those commands. So just taking a look at this, once again, we have our static NAT and we have our dynamic NAT. And we can actually do a little bit of comparison, because this here is our static and this here is our dynamic. Nonetheless, let's go ahead, and the first thing I want to mention is on the one of the commands that we had. Okay, it was access list one permit, you're permitting the private IP addresses on that particular command. You want to go ahead and permit these. Remember, this is our private local area network. This is this is our land. We're trying to save IP addresses. So instead of giving each one of these devices, in this situation, we only have a server, but we can add computers. Instead of giving this, instead of giving this um, this this device here a public IP address and another computer a public IP address, and say you need 30, you have 30 computers, so now you need 30 public IP addresses. You're going to use NAT in order to go ahead and save those public IP addresses. Okay, with Dynamic NAT, using the same situation that we had above, we only have 14 available addresses. Okay, we only have 14 available addresses. With Dynamic NAT, think about it this way: if you're not using the IP address, then it's going to go to a PC that is using it. If that PC is using it, then we're going to use the 13th address. If another computer comes online, we're going to use the 12th address. If another computer comes online, we're going to use the 11th address. If one PC decides that it's not using it, okay, now we have 12 addresses. So think of it's literally is a pool of IP addresses, okay, where you only have 14 available. Okay, and like I mentioned, this is our private. So this we can go ahead and let me just show you guys. Before we do that, let's make sure, um, private IP address, just keep that in mind. That's going to be your inside local. That's the IP address on the server. Outside IP address, aka inside global. Okay, so that's going to be the actual public IP addresses that were given to us. In this case, we have the 1.1.1.0/28 network, which is basically we have 14 available addresses. That's the because we gave one here, we gave one here. Um, Technically, that would be we have 12. But remember, this here is on the magic number of what would be 16. Okay. And like I mentioned before, that gets a little complicated because of the way the numbers work. But just trust me on this one. You have 14 available addresses. The network address, okay, 1.1.1.0, 1.1.1.15 is the broadcast address. We're using two IP addresses for this interface. So you do technically have 14 available addresses. Two of them are being used. Okay, and let's go ahead. Let's start doing some pinging. Before we do, uh, just to go ahead and show this, we're gonna go to show IP NAT translations. Notice how there's literally nothing. Okay, guys. I'm on router 2. I clicked in our command show IP NAT translations. There's nothing. Okay, so let's go to my server. And this server, as you guys can tell, I've been playing around with this. We're going to go ahead and ping. Okay, once we ping, we're going to go to show. It's literally the same command, show. And now we have something here. Okay, now we're working with something. Notice here the very first one. Okay, remember this is our public network. Okay, we have point 1, we have point 2. The very next one that came up was point 3. Okay, inside local. Remember, inside local. So this is our inside, and it's local with regards to the actual IP address that is configured on that device. So 1.0.1.10 is the actual IP address in this system. Let's go ahead. Let's do this while we're here. Let's go ahead and add a few computers. So let's add this computer. Let's add this computer. Let's start moving this stuff over here. There we go. Let's move this over here. Okay. Hopefully you guys read the notes. We kind of we didn't kind of, we already explained the notes. But let's go ahead and let's do this to end our video. We're just gonna go ahead and connect this here, connect this here, and here we go. So we're gonna go to this computer here. We're gonna go to our IP configuration. Okay, so this is, let's go ahead. Let's make this 10.0.1. Let's just go with 20. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and make this 10.0.1. Let's make it 30. Okay, so it's rather distinguishable. Now we actually have to go into our configurations. So IP address 10.0, 10.0.1.20, subnet mask /8. That's perfect. Our default gateway, this right here, 10.0.1.1, guys, this is going to be our default gateway in this situation. So 10.0.1.1. Okay, got it. Perfect. Now let's go to this PC and let's go ahead and do something similar. We go to the interface, go here. We're going to go to IP address 4. That's going to be our 10.0.1.30. Subnet mask 255. That's a /8. Our default gateway is going to be 10.0.1.1. Okay. So it looks like we have that configured. Okay, so let's go ahead. What we're going to do is we're going to get all these 3 devices to ping this device here. Okay, so we can go ahead and demonstrate a couple things. So here, let's go ahead and we're going to ping, okay, this computer here. We're going to go to our ping, and that's 1.1.1.18. Okay, this computer here, we're gonna go back and ping 1.1.1.18. Okay, let's make sure these pings are going through. We got a reply, cool. Let's go here. We got a reply, perfect. Let's go here. We got a reply, excellent. Okay, so we got our replies. So remember, this here, okay, this here was what we had before we added these 2 computers. Now let's take a look and see what we have now. So we go here and look at how this works. Okay, guys, look at how this works. Okay, 1.0.1.10 is our server. Okay, that the inside local, that's the IP address that we put on inside our server. We configured our server with this private inside local private IP address 9 times out of 10. Okay, as I know there's always that one arbitrary, or there's always that one outlier that's just like, oh well, you said always, so just high probability. Okay, inside local, high probability that it's going to be your private IP address. But I want you to look at this. 1.1.1.3 was the first one that was given to that one. 1.1.14 was the one that was given to our 10.0.1.20, which was this computer here. Okay, this computer here, you saw me configure it with a 10.0.1.20. Okay, our inside local, we gave this the private IP address. The way we configured, as I mentioned already, that Dynamic Nat was already configured in this situation. We got to use 1.1.14. Okay, and in this situation, this bottom one here, now we have 1.1.1.5. Okay, notice how it's going up. Okay, and because it's using our pool. It's using our pool of addresses. Remember, we have this right here. This is perfect notation right here, because as you guys can see, we have 14 available addresses. Okay, 1.1.1.1.0/28 was the network address that we were given. Okay, we have our available is 1.1.1.1 through 1.1.1.14. The reason why this didn't start with 2 or with 1, this right here, is because these 1 is because of our configuration. But the reason why we had that configured was because this is using 0.1 and this is using 0.2. So I'm going to go ahead, let's go to show run, and you guys will see my configuration, and I'm going to show you guys how to actually configure this. But notice here, IP NAT pool NAT. I literally just named it NAT. It says 1.1.1.3 through 1.1.114. Okay. So that is our dynamic NAT. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. Hopefully that explained the situation. In our next video, we're gonna just simply focus on just literally just doing the actual commands on the router.